You can follow every enterprise best practice by following something like clean architecture or some type of layered architecture, maybe event-driven architecture, microservices. Doesn't matter, it all ends up in the same place where you have a system that's really hard to change, and when you do make a change, you're in fear that you're gonna break something. At some point, the same comment keeps coming up, we'd just be better off rewriting this whole thing. And the thing is, the code base, it might not even look that bad. It probably might even not be that hard to follow, except it is because it's convoluted and complicated when you actually need to make changes. And one of the reasons is, it's probably one of these 5 where you're making a decision about something architectural, but you shouldn't be because you don't have enough information yet. The common thread between all of them is just making very expensive decisions when you don't truly understand the business or the problems that you're trying to solve. Rather, you're adding technical nonsense as solutions to problems you don't even have. And that's the shift. The shift is in the question. It's not about what architecture should we use? Should we use clean architecture, event-driven architecture? Really, the question should be, what do we understand about the problem that justifies the architectural decision that we're about to make? The first bad decision is choosing your architecture, tooling, frameworks, etc. without really understanding your business domain. If the start of a conversation related to a project is, well, we need to use microservices, event sourcing, CQRS, Kafka, Kubernetes, but nobody can explain the business processes or workflows, nobody can talk about what the constraints are, consistency issues that we might have, failure modes. If that's the first thing people are talking about is this, we're doing it backwards. Architectural patterns, tooling, etc. It's not a bingo card. It's not a checklist. And of course, it comes with trade-offs and complexity. That means if you want independent deployability, guess what? You have distributed operations. If you want to scale independently, you got network failures you got to deal with. If you have team autonomy, where you have different teams dealing with their own services or deployments, etc., you're going to have some type of cross-service, cross-team communication, coordination. Even if it's not synchronous with events, you still have that contract. If you want isolation, you're going to have consistency challenges with different boundaries. There's always a trade-off. There's always added complexity to the problems you're trying to solve. Sure, there's a solution, but there's a cost. So the conversation should start of whether microservices are bad or not. That's irrelevant. What we really need to focus on are kind of what are the forces against our system? What are we trying to solve? What technical problems do we need to solve? Do we have consistency issues that we need to address there? There's a certain part of the business which changes and the rules iterate, change quickly where we might want to isolate that. If we have some type of workflow, can we have delays a part of that workflow that downstream that we need to address? Those are really kind of the questions, not, well, should we be using this pattern or this pattern? Use the pattern that fits kind of as a solution to the problem that you actually have and that you're trying to address. So if you're making technical decisions first, you're really just guessing that you're going to have that problem. I'll get to point number 2, which I think is probably the most egregious and causes the most pain, if you will. But first, I'd like to thank Kurrent for sponsoring this video. Kurrent's an event-native data platform that feeds real-time business-critical data with historical context and fine-grained streams from origination to destination, enhancing data analytics and AI outcomes. For more on Kurrent, check out the link in the description. The second bad decision is what I call entity services, where you are completely driven by your data model rather than behavior. And at first glance, like I said earlier, your code could look great, organized. Maybe we have clean architecture, we have some layered architecture, we have a controller, services, a repository that interacts with our database. But these entities are really just tables or object graphs of customers, orders, etc. We just have CRUD ultimately. Let's use the example of a simple order. What does this tell us? Well, there's data. There's an ID, a customer ID, a status, and a total. Tells us nothing more than that. Can you cancel an order? Well, you'd assume so, right? But how does that happen? Does that just change the status? At what point can you actually ship this order? Does it need to be within a certain status? It doesn't tell us anything. We just have data here. So where is all this logic? If you're driven by CRUD and entity services, oftentimes it's in your end users' heads. They're the ones that understands the processes and the workflows. But you will have some logic, so where is it? Sprinkled everywhere, whether it be controller or more so now more than ever, front ends where they actually have all the logic, or message handlers, or yes, still store procedures. But that logic, it's everywhere. Now hear me out though, CRUD is not bad. There's always part of your systems that need CRUD, that are inherently just CRUD. Referential kind of list of things that you have, there's no logic behind them. It's CRUD and it should be CRUD. The issue is assuming everything is CRUD or developing everything in a way that it's just an updatable record when it is not. Back to my order example, there's a very big difference of update order, where you just change the properties on the order, versus being explicit about what is actually happening, that you're canceling an order, that you want to cancel an order and what the reason is. It's not just CRUD, it's being explicit about the behavior of what you're actually intending to do. The question you really got to ask yourself is, the operation I'm performing, does it communicate business intent? My example, cancel order, that's the intent. I'm canceling the order. And because of that, you can then ask a bunch of questions with it. Can you cancel order given how long ago it was placed? Or did we already reserve inventory? Has it been shipped? Do we need to give a refund? There's a bunch of questions that now are derived from that because of the intent of what you were trying to do. Now, the third bad decision follows directly this second bad decision, which is thinking about your data model only. And it's really about using your schema as an integration point. So let's say we have two different parts of our system, sales and warehouse. We have a single database instance, but maybe it's kind of somewhat separated between things that are related to sales and the warehouse. Let's say sales does some interactions, deals with stuff that it owns, but then it kind of goes off the side here, whether it's just maybe querying data or potentially even worse, writing data to something that you would think is kind of owned by the warehouse. Well, who owns this data actually now? Is it sales or is it the warehouse? Ultimately, you have no separation, you have no ownership. Ultimately, your schema became an integration point. Now, I know some people will come and say, who cares? I have this massive database, all these different parts, there's consistency constraints that I have. Who cares? I just want to use my database. Fine, so as long as you know that you have no contract and you are just using it as storage at that point. Typically though, however, you want ownership. You want ownership of knowing, okay, well, this data gets written how? If you want to change some particular table, collection, stream, etc., who owns it? Who do I need to communicate it with? If you have no clear ownership, that's when you start breaking things. A solution to this, which we all know, is just using an API. Have warehouse expose some API, which ultimately is the contract that sales can use to interact with how it needs to invoke some type of request, get information, data out. But I know everybody's thinking, a view. I want to be able to use a view. Absolutely. A view is a contract, and you're defining it that way because you're exposing how you want other boundaries to be able to interact with it. If you create a view specifically as a contract that other boundaries can use, that's another alternative as well. And that's an important distinction to make, is that a shared database instance, that's not a problem. You can have different boundaries, own schemas within that shared database instance. The issue is the lack of ownership, and then when it's just a free-for-all where anything can change any data within that instance, that's a problem. It goes back to the beginning of saying, well, why is my system, if something breaks? Well, let's say an order that's in an invalid state. How did it get that way? Well, I have no idea. There's no ownership. Anything could have changed the state incorrectly. It didn't go through the actual process, business rules and validation to make sure it actually can get into that state. It got into an invalid state how? Because we have no ownership. Now, my fourth bad decision, which is arguably my biggest pet peeve, is building abstractions when you don't know what varies. What this means is, well, we might swap something out. So we start with the shared service, then we realize we got some kind of patterns happening here. So then guess what? We create some generic workflow engine. And then, well, what happens if we change out our database or messaging library? So let's create some abstraction around that. Then we can actually build the app. And it sounds like it makes sense. You want reuse. We're all taught reuse. And kind of that what if of if that underlying provider changes. Okay, well, we just have this abstraction. We create a new implementation behind that. We're good. We don't have to rewrite large portions of our app. We, for example, change our messaging library. I get it. That makes sense. Here's the problem. If you only have a single implementation of the abstraction that you're trying to create, you don't have an abstraction. You don't have enough information or understanding about what are the other concrete implementations that kind of overlap a little bit and how they overlap and how they're different. It's the same thing goes with, for example, a messaging library. There's wild differences between RabbitMQ and say average service bus. Or maybe you want to use something different, which you think is the same thing like Kafka, and you want to be using that. They have very different semantics. So while it may seem like they're the same thing, if you start using one, you create an abstraction around that, you don't have an abstraction because you only have knowledge of one implementation. So are abstractions bad? Of course not. Of course they're not bad. But a bad abstraction is really kind of pretending that you're removing coupling. You're not. So my fifth bad decision is building for scale you don't have yet. And yet is the key word there. It's paying all the upfront complexity and building into something that you don't know you'll ever have. That's not to say you shouldn't design a system so you can scale, should that come to it, should you need it, but don't pay all the upfront costs initially. And it's all because of hypotheticals. We might have millions of users. We might need to replace the database. This eventually, it could become global. But what are we talking about with scale? Are we talking about more users, more data, more transactions, more geographical regions? It needs to scale. It's not really a requirement. So it's not about ignoring scale or thinking that it's not going to happen or speculating that it will. It's really just about defining clear boundaries and managing the coupling between those boundaries. If you do that and make the conscious effort of understanding that logical boundaries and physical boundaries are not the same thing, and you do not cross those lines thinking they're exactly the same thing, you give yourself a much better chance of understanding that you can scale different parts of your system if it actually happens. I'll have a link in the description or kind of at the end that really tries to explain this a little bit more, because you'll realize that kind of when we talk about scale in the sense of, oh, well, I think microservices allows me to scale better because everything's independent. The whole conversation of a modular monolith or microservices, you can scale them the exact same way. And that actual conversation of them being different things kind of goes out the window when you realize logical boundaries and physical boundaries are not the same thing. Now, I really do think these 5 decisions are what cause a lot of pain in systems. When you're making technical decisions first without really understanding the domain, when you're treating your data model as a domain model, and you don't really understand what the workflow is because it's in users' heads or littered through your system, when you do not have clear ownership, and it really just is a free-for-all where anything can change and read data anywhere, or when you're trying to create abstractions when you don't really know what you're creating the abstraction for, and you're doing it just in case. And the same thing with the just in case for scale, when you're building for scale and you really don't know if you're ever gonna have it. Now, if any one of those 5 bad decisions haunts you or the system that you're in, now's the time, get in the comments and let me know what caused the issue, one, all 5 of them, or if it's something else that I didn't include. Get in the comments. Thank you to everybody that supports my channel. The links in the description on how to join. It allows me to keep creating videos. I really do appreciate the support. Links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, make sure to leave a comment. And please subscribe for more videos on software architecture and design. Thanks.